Are you ready to get your feet wet? Because this is the Knowledge Pool, hosted by Gathering Information. We're here to bring you a casual conversation between friends about everything to do with collecting, trading, and playing Magic the Gathering.
I am Tams.
I am Step.
And I am Laura.
So put on your bathing suits and dive right into the Knowledge Pool. Hello and welcome to episode 41 of the Knowledge Pool. I am Step.
And I'm Tams.
And I'm Laura.
And we're here to talk about magic.
We are.
As usual.
Yep. Nothing unusual happening here.
Nope, not at all.
So where do we start? You've got the notes.
What have we been up to this week?
What have we been up to this week? What have you been up to this week?
I've been up to something magically adjacent. I have been working...
And what did Jay send you?
Wow.
Oh, wow. Some emo music.
Boo.
A Nickelback CD.
Yeah.
I have been working on our upcoming D&D Magic campaign.
Cool.
I've been learning all about Innistrad and the all of the people and creatures and things that live there.
And also about how to GM a game.
Yes, because that is new to me, so that's been interesting too.
I can hardly wait.
Good, because it's going to be fun. And I may have gone into Minecraft and started laying out the map in Minecraft and not even using the block, the block editor. I'm actually doing it by digging up, well, no. I'm using it in creative mode, but still.
There are probably easier ways to go about that.
Probably, but it's not fun. I don't want to have to learn how to edit stuff when I can go in and... Don't you play Minecraft for the zen-ness of creation?
Sure. Have you ever played Minecraft?
No.
Okay.
I played Terraria.
Not the same.
I know it's not the same, but it's not that dissimilar.
There are
I don't really
similarities.
like Terraria particularly.
I think you should give it another shot.
I don't like the battle stuff. I play Minecraft. I rarely play unless you and I are doing the
Super Hostiles?
Super Hostels. I generally leave off the battle, the PvE stuff. I generally just do creative so I can build things. But anyways, I will probably have available for download the map so that people can walk through the world that you're going to be playing in at some point.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, because I'm that much of a nerd. And I've also, what else have we been doing? You and I have been doing some more, drafting, not even drafting. Oh my gosh, Winston
Yes, drafting.
It's been a long week. Good gravy.
Yeah.
And then Laura and I did Battle for Zendikar today.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so the Battle Cube is almost ready to go. I think what did I say, 5 cards? 4 cards?
You said 7 cards, 3 of which are Hedron alignment.
Oh, right. Well, 4 unique cards, plus 2 more Hedron alignments, and I think that's it. Yeah.
So. I drafted the heck out of Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch when it came out, so I had almost everything that you were missing.
Yes, indeed. Which were all mythics and the occasional rare.
Yes.
And a single Iona's Blessing, which I never picked up. I wonder why.
I don't know why you never did. It was a great... No, that's a lie.
Yeah.
It was bad.
And for me, I remember how grindy this format is. I said to Step, so when you get it all ready and you invite people over to draft, I will host. Oh, it's
You're
so
going to be
grindy.
my partner for the Two-Headed Giant, right?
Sure, if you want to listen to me whine about how grindy it is.
Well,
It's a little, I think it's a little different if you are, I don't know. No, I guess it's not.
You also had a random sampling. Like it's not
true. It's true.
It's actually really grindy in Two-Headed Giant. I did Two-Headed Giant pre-releases for both sets with a friend from the shop.
Ugh.
And the first time that we played, I ran a sweet black-white ally life gain deck, and my co-partner did blue-red, so he had flyers and removal. That works really well in a board stally situation.
Yeah, seems good. It's just not particularly aggressive, and but it'll be fun anyway.
So that's Two-Headed Giant sealed, which we should be able to do a 4-player sealed with it.
Yeah, because Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch were both really designed to be played in a two-headed environment.
Especially Oath,
because it had the surge mechanic where if you cast a spell before this spell this turn, you get an extra benefit, whether it's a cost reduction or an extra effect.
Yeah.
And it really incentivized
it also really helps with the grindiness, because I was playing that Clash of the Titans or something like that. Fall of the Titans, which is a pretty sweet little do a bunch of damage to 2 creatures spell. But the problem is, unless you can do the surge, it's not lightly costed.
I mean, keep in mind, if you surge it, you can do that much damage to each player.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then suddenly you're doing 10 damage to each player and you win the game.
Yeah, which again is great in two-headed kind of formats. But for me, playing just against you, I never got the surge off because I couldn't afford to cast a spell and use it to the amount that I needed to kill you creatures.
And it's not that great against my deck's MVP Fortified Rampart, which is an 06 wall for 2.
I hate it so much.
So the card we're talking about, Fall of the Titans, is a XX red for, is it sorcery?
I think it's an instant.
It's an instant.
I don't remember.
Deal X damage to 2
up to
2 target creatures or players.
Yeah.
So if you surge it, it's just red and X. So
Which
you get to
so
basically double the amount of damage you can do
it's
with
double fireball basically at that point, which is gross.
Yeah. So that's very strong, but especially strong with the surge mechanic. Mm-hmm. It's not just if you cast a spell, it's if you or a partner.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So that's why the Two-Headed Giant really helps the surge mechanic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to doing a sealed event for this two-headed. I don't know about draft. I think that would be really interesting.
I want to do a Two-Headed Giant draft.
Yeah. I'll do it. It'll be just weird.
There are rules. So it's like you have 4 teams, and I believe the teams sit next to each other, and you each pick from the boosters at the same time.
It's something like that. Yeah, or you look at it and you take 2 cards, and then you pass it, and then...
Yeah, it's not like team drafting. It's Two-Headed Giant drafting. It's different. And I'll look up the rules when we actually get a pod together and do it. But I imagine it's going to be
Plus,
fun.
It's really fun playing Two-Headed Giant just because we don't often get the chance to play with a partner.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, even in multiplayer formats, it's almost always free-for-all. Mm-hmm. So...
Looking forward.
So what have you been up to, Stepford, other than playing with me?
Putting the cubes together. But I've also... It's been really difficult not looking at spoilers for Rivals of Ixalan.
I've now seen most of the spoilers, I'll be honest.
Yeah, well...
I'm not, trying to memorize combat tricks, because that's too much effort, but it's tough.
I have actually avoided most of the set. So, I have been staying off of Facebook, mostly. Mm-hmm. I've been staying away from my usual Magic haunts. And instead, when I got bored at work overnight, which happens when you're working overnight, I decided to go on Draft Sim and mock draft a bunch of older formats, and
Sounds
specifically rare draft them. So, I mean, rare draft on challenge mode is if there's a rare in the pack, you have to pick the rare.
Of course.
If there's not a rare, you have to pick an uncommon.
Okay.
If there's not a rare or an uncommon, then you can pick what you like. But just having that extra stipulation of having to pick the uncommon makes for some really terrible decks.
Now, I assume you then have to play all of these
You
rares
have to play
and
all of the
uncommons?
rares. You don't have to play all of the uncommons, but you must play all the rares. So I would look at my pool and say, okay, select all the rares. This is where I have to start with. What does the deck look like? And then I would also go back and say, okay, if I don't have to play all the rares, is there a deck here?
Right.
And usually, yes, there was a deck. Like, if you could eliminate the 1 white rare and the 1 green rare, or if you could eliminate the 2 worst rares, then you could make a pretty solid deck.
Yeah.
There was one draft that basically all of the rares were black and or red. And that was an Ixalan specific draft.
Oh,
I got
that sounds sweet.
3 of the 1/1s that get +1 counters for all the
the
creatures
flash
that
guy.
die. And they're not great in multiples.
Yeah, but you don't mind playing them.
basically my curve was 1 into 2 into 3 into combat tricks in that deck. So I was like,
Could be doable.
that's not so bad.
Seems good.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was black and green, not black and red. And I also had 2 of the 1/1 green guys that you put a +1 counter on them whenever you cast a non-creature spell, I think it is.
Okay.
So, yeah,
tricks.
basically a wall of 1/1s in combat.
Seems interesting.
Seems honestly not great, but,
I mean, in this format,
yeah, who knows?
probably fine.
And then I went back all the way to Cons of Tarkir and rare drafted that, and because there was so much just random fixing, it was so much smoother.
Yeah,
like triple cons with, like, when there wasn't a rare in the pack, I could often pick up a dual land, a gain land, and that just meant I was playing 5-color good stuff.
Sure, which is absolutely a deck in cons.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
the format was a bit slower, right? Just because everybody was playing multiple tap lands and things like that.
Mm-hmm. I wish there was a place that I could, play a grab bag style draft or draft a grab bag style thing online, but nobody has really done that.
Right.
However, this week at the shop there's going to be. So
That's true.
I'm super looking forward to that.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
That's mostly been my Magic experience this week.
What about you?
I went to the shop on Friday and we drafted a flashback draft.
Uh-huh.
So we did Theros block.
Oh, Theros, I love you.
Aren't you tired of Theros?
No, never. Bite your tongue.
I certainly feel more familiar with a lot of the cards than I have been in the past.
Yeah.
So
how was your black-green deck?
I didn't draft black-green.
No?
I didn't draft black. I didn't draft green.
Dear Lord.
All right.
White-blue.
Hold on to your socks. I drafted red-white heroic.
Wow.
Because I'm a monster.
Seems good.
So,
did you get
pack
Necro
one,
and
pick
Phalanx?
one. Pack one, pick one. I took Banishing Light.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Pack one, pick two. I took a Banishing Light.
Oh.
That seems good.
And then I decided I was definitely in white.
Seems reasonable.
Yes.
Yeah.
The person who passed it to me has drafted Theros once before, and he took a card that's not the rare, which is the artifact, the banner that gives creatures of a chosen color +1/+1.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I took it because it looked really sweet, but on further reflection, I should have taken that Banishing Light.
Yes.
I said, yes, absolutely. So my deck probably didn't have quite enough 2-drops, but I had plenty of bestow creatures. I had a few heroic creatures, not some of the best ones, but like I had the flyer that gets counters and stuff like that. And I had the Ornitharch, I want to say.
I like the Ornitharch.
3 white tribute 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If they don't pay the tribute, then you get 2 1/1s.
I never got him to work.
It was very good as
sweet.
a top end.
Okay.
In my deck, because I would be beating face with my.
And then you
were
have
you
one
mostly
that
like-
you can bestow, and then you
Yeah.
have bigger
Yeah.
flyers. And
Yeah.
it's fun.
Basically. So I ended up going 2-1. I lost to the eventual winner. I honestly didn't have great games just because I mulled to 5 and then I flooded in game 2. So it wasn't like my deck was working very well, but still, I mean, he won the draft, so his deck was not too bad either.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very bad for my third round opponent, who was our Magic friend, Garrett, who said, all I did was want to draft a Dirtily deck and play against someone who also didn't want to do anything, and I got matched up against 3 aggressive decks that just wanted to attack.
Aww.
I was like, any other day in Theros, I would have been happy to do nothing.
I just wanted to be a terrible monster and nobody would let me.
I got past Vanishing Light. What do you want from me?
No, I get it. But poor Garrett wanted to be a monster.
What did he draft around?
I think he was just he was Simic Dirtily.
Simic Dirtle.
Which is normally the exact deck I love to draft.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I was very sad for him because I promptly crushed him really quickly. Because I was red, white, heroic, and that's what that deck does.
Whoops.
Yep. So, it was alright. I came in second because I actually came in third, but the shop owner dropped himself out of prizes.
Sure.
And got 2 prize packs, opened up a Vraska
Nice.
Planeswalker, which is the first one I've opened this set, so I'm quite pleased with how things went. And then afterwards, I also Winston drafted the Battle for Zendikar cube with Tams minus 4 unique cards, which we figured wouldn't matter because we're only using 90 cards anyway.
Yep.
So that's I'd forgotten how grindy it was, but that set is super grindy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just all creatures hitting up against each other. And if you get off to a really aggressive start, or if you have a really synergy-based deck around Ingest, and you can actually pull it off, like with the flying Ingesters and things like that.
I remember how annoying that was.
Or if you ramp into, like, literally Ulamog.
Yeah.
I was really happy with my deck, considering how weird Winston can be. I wound up with a really sweet, rampy kind of deck.
Your deck ramped hard.
Yeah, really, really well. And the
into
Bane?
lands. The Bane of Balagad.
Oh man,
yeah.
that is super sweet.
Yep.
So it was interesting, a little grindy for my taste, but
basically the third card. So I ended up taking one off the top. I got Ondu Rising as my very first card, which is the 1 and a white sorcery that. When your creatures attack this turn, they get lifelink, and it has Awaken for 4 and a white. So I went, I mean, it's playable, but it's not very good. And then about the third card I got was the Felidar Sovereign, which is the 4 white Vigilance, life gain 4/6, where if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. And I was like, you know what? I'm going for it. There's a white ally deck of some color combination where I just gain a bunch of life and I win the game, assuming she doesn't remove the entire point of my deck. But, you know, if you have like 40 life, even if you don't have the Felidar Sovereign, it's kind of hard to lose.
Yeah.
So
that's not a legendary creature, is it?
I don't think
because
so.
that would make a killer commander.
That would be sweet. So, I was actually fairly impressed with how my deck ended up working.
Yeah.
It was red, white, splashing black for a couple of cards.
So you're on a red-white kick this week.
Look, I don't like where I am in life right now. I'm just trying to work through some things.
And I was in straight up Jund. Hard Jund.
There's nothing wrong with Jen.
To be fair, you had a fair amount of fixing.
I did. It was really nice.
So there are a couple of things that maybe we should address about Battle Block while we're talking about the cube.
Sure.
You had a good question when you were drafting. How are we going to deal with the colorless theme?
Yes, because with the actual set itself, they introduced colorless mana as a thing, particularly in Oath of the Gatewatch, and they had lands that produced colorless mana at common.
Yeah.
So if you wanted it, you would draft it, but you could usually pick up 2 or 3 pieces if you knew that you needed it.
Yeah, so there are still quite a few lands that do create colorless mana.
Sure, but there's only one of each.
Right.
Yeah, there's a few things, like I had 2 creatures that tap for colorless.
Yeah.
That produce colorless.
I also had 2.
Yeah, and some of the artifacts, the little 1/1 dudes.
Right, but the problem is that in a cube you don't see all the cards.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
So at the very least, I know I'm going to put in one of each of the artworks of the wastes.
Okay.
But that's probably not going to be enough either, so...
I mean, we'll probably just have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Update as we go, I guess.
And honestly, it might just change. Because in draft, you're more likely to see them if you need them. Whereas in sealed, it's luck of the draw. So maybe in sealed you need more, but in draft you're fine with one of each.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Well, I know when we were doing the Winston, there was a stack of cards that had an activated ability that needed colors, and I was like, I'm not taking it because I don't know. It's not a great card otherwise. And then another card got put on top, and it happened to be one of the lands that tapped, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to take that because suddenly it's totally playable.
Yeah.
So
Just looking 1, 2, 3,
Probably
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
is this counting with step?
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and I don't know how many different arts there were. I think there were only 2 or 3, so approximately 20 sources.
Out of how many cards?
Out of, how many cards are in the sets? Like 300. So it may be just enough, but it may not be either because
Because there was a dedicated colorless stack.
yeah,
if you wanted to go for it. Where colorless was basically your third color, so you need 6 sources maybe.
Because if you even want to cast Kozilek, you need colorless
Yes.
mana, right? So
we're going to have to keep an eye. If it starts to become miserable, we'll just have to come up with some sort of alternate.
Yeah.
well,
rolling.
the first draft is going to probably be a little awkward.
Yeah.
So we'll just figure that out as we go.
And you also made the interesting decision, as we mentioned previously, to go for 4 copies of Hedron Alignment.
Yeah, well, I decided it's worth putting in there just in case somebody wants to live the dream. The Hedron Alignment is if you have a copy on the battlefield, in your graveyard, in your hand, and in exile.
It's an enchantment.
In
blue.
You win the game. So you need to get one
On your
into
upkeep, because you have to reveal the one in your hand, right?
into each of those zones.
Yeah.
So exactly 4 in the cube is just enough to make it almost impossible.
I mean, it's already almost impossible.
Yeah, but if there were only one of them, it would be completely impossible, and then it would just
true.
be a 4 mana enchantment that scries.
I mean, to be fair, that's basically what it was in Limited anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that there's the possibility that some janky player, Evan, can try and do it.
It kind of just tweaks the ridiculousness.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
Well, I've actually decided that going forward, I'm going to do that with at least, like, when Ixalan rotates out of Standard, I'm going to make sure there are 4 of the, Legion Conquistador in the cube, so that his ability has some sort of purpose, you know?
I can't say more without spoiling Rivals of Ixalan
Look,
cards.
I know I saw that he has been reprinted in Rivals.
That is accurate, so there would be 2 of them anyway.
So I'm going to put 2 of each, and that brings it up to 4, because I think if you can go for it, then sure, be rewarded. But that also necessitates all 4 of them being in the draft, which isn't necessarily going to happen. So I feel like that's in the spirit of Limited, being like, maybe you can live the dream, but probably not.
Mm-hmm.
This also gives me a good excuse to go back and put 4 of Loyal Pegasus in the Theros block cube.
Does it?
Well, I wanted to for a while.
It's your cube. You should do what you like. I think it could be fun.
Well, is there a different card that there should be 4 of?
Gary?
No thanks.
No.
But Gary, come on. You guys are party poopers.
Do you know, I saw one and passed one on Friday.
Really?
In your honor. It was pack 3.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's right.
Okay.
You were
I was
solidly
red-white.
red-white. What did you take over the Gary? Do you remember?
A red creature.
That's probably the right choice.
Probably
A
wise.
3-drop, I think.
Even I would agree.
What was the red Gary?
No, I did not have one of those. So
Okay.
I don't recall.
But yeah, that's also not bad. Not the same, not as good, but not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Which set was Pack Rat from?
That's from I don't know, RTR Block, and that's not the card that there's going to be 4 of. Neither is Stab
Ever.
Winds.
I mean,
I don't know.
One is too many.
Yeah. I haven't figured out what there should be more of in RTR Block. Maybe Gideon's.
maybe nothing.
Maybe nothing.
I don't think you should force it.
Yeah, probably not.
Just do it if it calls for it.
Fair enough. Shall we move on?
Shall we move on?
Yeah, so we're moving into the news. What's new in the news?
Well, we have a pre-release coming up this weekend.
Which I am excited about.
I'm stoked.
I'm less excited than at other pre-releases, to be honest.
I don't care. I just love pre-releases.
Yeah.
I love sealed. I love just getting together with a bunch of people you don't necessarily know and getting to play a bunch of Magic and then getting really sick.
Sick?
Well, that's what happened last time.
Oh.
You and I both came down with the death flu.
It's true. Maybe we should drink our Wheaties or eat our orange juice or
Something
whatever.
like that, yeah.
I think you just both should stay away from me and not breathe on me.
That's fair. That's fair. So do you have a plan for spiking the pre-release now that you've seen the entire set? And had
Yeah,
it spoiled?
opening a god pool and then just stomping face.
Fair enough.
Obviously,
fair enough.
that's my plan every pre-release. No, I think in Ixalan, if you can build a tribal thing, you should, but you shouldn't focus too much on it. Same as the first one. And if you can build a really aggressive beatdown deck, you should probably do that.
Okay. Well, that's good advice, which I'll probably take you up on.
And play all your removal and bombs. You know,
Yeah.
just like Sealed.
Yep. I think we pretty much covered that.
Yeah. So the next thing up, just something I wanted to talk about relating to the spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's all right with you. I'm going to spoil one card if you weren't already aware it was a thing, and then I'm going to describe something that happened and ask for your opinions.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a card called something Chupacabra. I don't remember. So anyways, it's 2 black for a 2/2, and it's a beast horror, so it is not tribal. And when it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls.
Okay.
So that seems pretty good. It's an
Yeah.
uncommon.
Sure.
Oh.
So then what happened is Patrick Sullivan, who is well known for being one of the better commentators on SCG Tour, him with Cedric. They usually do, the A-game stuff. They're fun to watch. But anyways, he's also, a game designer, as many Magic professionals tend to be these days. And he basically went on a massive rant on screen, which is very entertaining and also, I thought, well put together for a rant. According to LSV, who works with him, it's something that he does on a daily basis about this card as soon as it was spoiled. So I assume had a lot of rehearsal for it. But basically he said that, the reason, in his opinion anyway, that Magic has certainly changed a lot in the last several years is because of cards like this, which are simply better than removal. Because would you rather play a Doomblade or would you rather play a Ravenous Chupacabra?
Yeah, heck
Yeah.
Playing the creature every time.
And
It's a
the other
2-for-1,
problem is that because this guy is in the format, vanilla creatures that themselves don't do anything when they enter the battlefield, the classic example is Baneslayer Angel, literally does nothing. You should not be playing that in your deck because it's just going to get nugged by a Chupacabra, and then your opponent's up a 2/2 and you are up -1 cards. So, we're seeing a lot of this with energy. You've got things like the Rogue Refiner, which is a 3-mana 3/2, which in and of itself is fine, that draws you a card and gives you energy.
Yeah, that card's so ridiculous.
Right? And then if it dies, you don't care, because you're still, at the very least, you're neutral in cards, and if they spent an actual removal spell on it, you're actually up a card.
Yeah.
And then you're also up energy, which is the point of your deck.
Right.
Right, so, he, again, if you are interested in finding out his whole thoughts, it's been very discussed on the YouTubes and the Reddit, so you can pretty easily find it. So, yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on things like this, creatures with enter the battlefield effects, which are strictly better than cards in the past.
This is not an aberration. Is it not Shriekmaw that...
I was going to mention
Shriekmaw was
Shriekmaw.
non-artifact, non-black creature. And it was not a May, and it did not only target your opponent's creatures. So if your opponent didn't have any creatures, and you had a non-artifact, non-black creature, you had to kill it.
So it's
Okay.
strictly better, but...
Well,
yeah.
the Chupacabra is basically strictly better, except that you can't evoke it. That's the only difference.
Well, even things like Banisher Priest or Fiend Hunter, if they kill the Banisher Priest, they get their creature back. But it's a similar thing where you remove your opponent's creature and you get a creature in return.
Yeah, but...
So they're on board 2-for-1s.
Yeah, but for me, you don't really get an extra creature, because are you going to be doing anything with that creature? Never. It's just going to sit on the
Yeah,
battlefield.
are you attacking with your Banisher
You're not,
Priest?
you're not blocking, you're not attacking, it's just a rock.
There was one that was a 2-1 or a 2-2, I think, or maybe even a 2-3. Warden of the Fairgrounds a 2-3?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I think it was a 2/2, but I could be wrong.
But there are times
But
when
that's
you
not-
use them as creatures.
That is a very recent example. Like, that is something
that's
that's
fair.
happened after these changes started to take place.
Yeah, to
right?
me, this, first of all, feels like it should be sitting at rare. It's really good. Like, it's so good. I like black. You know what? This kind of ticks me off. Because I already play black, and now other people are going to be horning in on my black.
Boy, are they. If you open a Chupacabra, it's better than some of the rares, at least.
Dang it.
At 2 black, I think sitting at uncommon is fine. Like, it's double black, so it means you have to be playing a solid amount of black to play it.
Sure.
It's only a 2/2, so it's effectively getting you, generic token creature. So you're paying for a spell that removes an opponent's creature and then also leaves you with a grizzly bear, which is not like huge, but is absolutely worth it.
To me, it feels very huge, because if I can get rid of their, 8, 10, whatever, there's no restrictions on the size of the creature. It's gone.
If they played, a merfolk and put a bunch of auras on it, it's not hexproof.
And it's now suddenly you have a 2/2 sitting there as well to chump with. I think that's...
Oh, it's definitely good.
And as for the double black, I think...
There are also multiple ways to bounce it or flicker it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't enter the battlefield effect.
That's pretty sweet. I didn't play a ton of Ixalan, but I do believe that black is a fairly strong color.
Yeah,
regardless, you're looking at
vampires and pirates.
Yeah, so it seems really good. I can understand. I don't have enough information to say that this is a trend that is bad for the game, because this is one example. Show me 20 more. But it does seem excessively good.
I think this is a trend that is good for the game. Having creatures with enter the battlefield effects is a place that they've been going, a direction they've been going for a long time, because back in the counter everything days, no one was actually having any fun.
Yeah, but are you having fun now if you finally get the chance to play your big bomb and then they kill it with a 4-drop and get a 2/2?
I mean, there's always going to be a removal spell. 4 mana is a good place to put a removal spell. Maybe this should have cost 5.
There is literally a black removal spell that is 2 black, destroy target creature.
Sure.
In this set.
So is it at common or uncommon?
I don't recall, but this is strictly better.
Sure. So it's better than a card that exists in the set. That has also happened before.
Yes, but, my question, or at least the discussion to be had, is more so when you have creatures that have entered the battlefield effects, especially great ones like this, it just makes many cards strictly worse. And is that fun? Like, it just means you shouldn't be playing things like Baneslayer Angel, because it will die to this guy before you get to do anything with it.
Baneslayer Angel isn't in the set, so that's not a limited discussion, but if we're talking about constructed, people already only play the best cards anyway. So it's just a matter of where that line is of what the best card balance is.
I know you guys don't play Standard and too much recently anyway, but I mean, there's, especially with Energy being the predominant deck, there's been a lot of discussion about how just mid-range enter the battlefield things has kind of taken over the last few years, especially in Standard.
I don't mind that as a mid-range player.
So perhaps you're the wrong person to ask, I guess.
Maybe. I don't know. I think the card is sweet, and if I open one in my sealed pool, I'm definitely
yeah, of course you're going to play it.
But I think this would also work fine in a control deck, so it would also work really well in an aggro deck as the top end, so I don't see a problem with it. Or cards like this. I like the way Magic has been going. I like this trend toward creatures that do stuff. So
okay. I mean,
there goes all the vanilla creatures. What about the vanilla creatures?
Hey, in Limited, which is what I primarily play, you're going to need vanilla creatures because you're going to need creatures. This is an uncommon. You're going to have the bulk of your deck be made up of commons. And in Constructed, it's great to see an uncommon that might break into the wall of rares that people play.
Rogue Refiner is not a rare.
Rogue Refiner fits into that category of super good uncommons. So
Yes.
But
I mean, Attune with Ether's a common.
you also...
Teamer Energy has lots of commons and uncommons.
Well, that's a good thing, I think.
And that's because you haven't played Standard in the last year. I just mean a lot of people are sick of playing against Teamer Energy.
Well, this looks like it could deal with a bunch of things.
There's also
in Teamer
4-color energy, which is black.
This could still deal with
Aether Hub.
that energy.
So when was it rotating in again?
Yeah, end of the year.
Next year.
End of this year.
So this time next year.
We'll have new sets, yes.
Oh.
So, I guess, I mean, I agree with you in the sense that I think for Limited, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Fatal Push was non-common.
Yeah.
You'll probably see this about as often as you see Fatal Push, which is literally 0 times. In all the times I drafted Aether Revolt, I did not see a single one because you never saw it get past.
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
So I think for Limited, it's remarkably good card, but it's probably fine. I think his point, and again, if you want to check it out, certainly do so, because he goes on for another 10 minutes or so talking about how it, as a game, from a game design point of view, it makes the game less fun. And I think that his points resonated with a lot of people in the community.
I definitely want to go take a listen and hear what his points are. Yeah, that's
so
interesting.
especially if you play more constructed.
I will put the link in the down below.
There you go.
So people can have a look.
That sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Did we also want to talk a little bit about Kenji winning the Mox?
We sure did.
Mm-hmm.
Because, way to go.
Yeah.
Mr. Igashira.
We love Kenji. He's so great.
Look, he's the guy who, if I'm not sure what I want to put on, I'll throw on one of his drafts because they're usually ridiculous. And he's got those tones that are nice to listen to. Mm-hmm. So if it's not, like if I'm not looking for an LRR wacky draft, which, by the way, I have not seen an actual legit wacky draft in forever. They kind of draft now.
You should probably
I'm write them a stern letter.
I am. I'm going to write Dr. Zler a stern letter about how they don't draft kooky enough for my liking.
That's right. Stipulation drafts, people.
But in the meantime, I'll watch Kenji do whatever he's doing for like 6 hours a day because that's what he does.
Basically, yeah.
And looks like it's really paying off.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to do something for that amount of time and not improve.
So explain to those who don't know what's going on, what happened.
Yeah, so he won the Magic Online Championships, which just means that he beat large numbers of other online players. You have to qualify in order to get into the MOX, so you have to win events and things like that. And then after that, it is Swiss brackets for many rounds, depending on how many people are. I don't know how many it was this time. You start with sealed, and then once you're in top 8, you do draft. And so, yeah, he won the whole thing, which qualifies him for Pro Tour Dominaria.
That's exciting
which
for
is
him.
sweet. It's the first time he's
Just
ever
paper
qualified.
magic.
Yes, we'll have to see how that goes.
Well, he's predominantly, I've never, other than in Lur's skit, I've never seen him play paper magic.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that there are other ways to play magic, be successful, and to kind of cross over.
Yeah, so he posted recently, I think it was just a couple of days ago, on his YouTube channel. He uploaded the replays from Magic Online. So he was not streaming during this, which I assume would be much too distracting.
Yeah.
So he just got the replays from the program itself, and then he dubbed over his thought process. Not during the draft, because he wasn't able to get that, because they don't do replays of that, but just during the matches, during his top 8 matches, and eventually won the whole thing. So that was pretty awesome.
You're also linking that?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's generally accepted that the highest level high draft cat of Magic Online competition is comparable or possibly slightly higher than the Pro Tour
Yeah,
level.
that's what I've heard from pros.
Just because of the massive amounts of games that people can grind off and get so much better.
Yeah.
They get their reps in online, and there's just much less time between reps.
Yes,
you know?
especially with leagues.
Yeah, so with Kenji playing Magic, 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's not surprising that he's gotten to that high quality of play.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to see that he's
Yeah.
he's actually gotten there.
It'll be very interesting to watch him play in paper and see if he misses many triggers.
Yeah.
Because Magic Online handles all of that for you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I was curious about.
So,
Josh
Josh
Salem.
Cat wants to crawl across the table and go see Laura.
of course he
Of course.
does. So what was next up? Oh yeah, we have the next Pro Tour coming
Speaking
up
of Pro
shortly.
Tours.
Yes. So Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan is going to be February 2nd through 4th. So first week in February, which is coming up in about 3 weeks, and it's modern. So I'm stoked just because I tend not to watch the standard ones because, you know,
More energy.
it's boring. But the modern one should be pretty sweet. I really enjoy watching modern, especially in the early rounds where they try and get as many kooky and janky brews as possible into feature matches, just because once you get to, you know, day 2, it's usually the more established decks. But, you know, there are a bunch of decks in modern that are relatively competitive, you know, tier 1, tier 1.5.
Yep.
So I expect to see a fair amount of variety at the very least in day 1.
I will be watching mostly because I'm interested in getting into modern. So this is a good way for me to test my knowledge.
Yeah, and also just to identify decks or strategies or archetypes that might be interesting to play even on a budget level. I mean, especially day 1 where you're more likely to see things like budget builds.
Well, that's where I love to watch Saffron Olive break down decks from small Japanese tournaments.
Yes. Which
And
are
what-
all of his janky decks, obviously.
Yeah. So, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, Wizards there is a new ban and restricted announcement coming up probably on the 15th. So people are curious to see if anything's going to happen for Standard.
Oh, yeah.
Because it might be that nothing happens and we just get more Teamer energy. Or they might try and ban some of just that one deck, or they might try and hit energy more general. No one's quite sure. I mean, the metagame is very much in favor of the energy decks, but it's also just not you lose on turn 4 because I got Aetherworks, Marvel into Emrakul. So, you know, it might be that Wizards is interested in just keeping the format the way it is until the new set comes out, just so they can see what changes happen. But on the other hand, you know, you're not likely to get tribal decks in Standard if energy is in Standard, because they're just not going to be as good.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
that'll be interesting to see. But Wizards also said when they announced the Modern Pro Tour that they would probably not be doing emergency bannings like they did with Splinter Twin to liven up the format, or, you know, that sort of thing.
Well, the format is still pretty lively, so that's a good thing.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else that we found on Twitch?
There is nothing going on any of the channels this weekend.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Just
very
because
quiet.
of the pre-release?
Yeah, well, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Keep in mind, Magic Online is doing a limited time offer. You can draft, or you can do a pre-release sealed event, I believe, on the Friday
Okay.
before the pre-release. So if you're interested in that, check it out online. It's the first time they're doing it. I think it's fine. I mean, it gives people a bit more of an advantage because if they then do a Saturday pre-release, they will have seen the cards and played with them. But that's also true of the diehards who do Friday night midnight pre-releases. So at least this way you're pretty sure they're not bringing their cards in and cheating on the Saturday.
That's a fair point. Okay, I think we'll probably have a conversation about how online and paper play are interacting at some point later down the line, but we're actually running low on time here. Apparently we had a lot to talk about. So for our last sort of segment of today, I have been asked to talk about Dominaria.
That's right.
So Dominaria is the original plane of Magic the Gathering, and it's one that we're coming back to, I guess, in a couple of months. And for anyone who started playing Magic in the last, 5-10 years, they might not know anything about Dominaria.
That is accurate.
So Dominaria, I've been trying to school my pronunciation, is the central nexus of the Magic the Gathering multiverse. It's the plane that is at the core of Magic. It's where the first, I want to say like 20 sets occurred on the plane of Dominaria. And it's not like they hadn't thought of the whole planeswalking idea. They had planeswalkers.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't bother to go anywhere other than Dominaria.
Right.
So it was kind of, I don't know, the Middle Earth of Magic.
So not to interrupt, but one interesting thing I think that says about the plane itself is just that, especially in more recent times, the planes generally just have one theme. Kaladesh is all about the mechanical stuff. And, Zendikar is all about the action-adventure stuff. And, Ixalan is all about dinos and pirates and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And Dominaria, if it had so many sets, there must have been a lot of diversity.
There was, and they kind of baked that into the lore of Dominaria because it is at the core of the multiverse. It is larger, much larger than any of the other planes that are sort of like scattered fractures of what the core world is.
That's kind of a clever way of dealing with it.
Yeah, and Dominaria does hold sway over many of the other planes. Like there are creatures that were originally from Dominaria that have seeped into the other planes. Some planes were created by beings from Dominaria. Mirrodin is a good example of that.
Okay.
And it's actually like a really big world. Dominaria is about 2.5 times the size of Earth, according to the lore. And I think that's mostly just so that they could have vastly spread out locations.
Right.
All of the stuff that you see on classic Magic cards, like Thran, the Thran Empire was from Dominaria, so Thran Dynamo, things like that.
Okay.
Teleria, where the Telerian Academy is from, that's an island on Dominaria. Shiv, the island of Shiv, from Shivan Dragon,
Okay.
etc.
Yeah.
All of the Painlands, in fact, the Llanowar Wastes, the Caves of Koilos, those are locations on Dominaria.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Otaria, I don't know if anyone knows really where Otaria is, but there were several sets set on Otaria. So from the Arctic Wastes, which is like the North Pole, to the Frozen Reaches, which is like the South Pole, there's a wide variety of different inspirations. There's an Asian continent of like Japanese kind of inspiration.
Presumably where Kamigawa.
No, Kamigawa is its own plane.
Oh.
But
Well, yeah, but that's presumably where they got that
possibly
shard from or whatever, right?
So it's not clear exactly whether like all of the planes are fractured out directly from Dominaria, but there are through lines of mana that run through the entire multiverse, and that's sort of where planeswalkers traverse, is these through lines. And so going from plane to plane, you can see the influence of the central nexus. Where are my notes? So there's a whole bunch of like lore from early Magic. When I first started playing Magic, it was all about the Brothers' War, and that's what first drew me into the game.
Right, so that's a book series, right? There is a series about it, which I've been told is one of the best book series of Magic lore.
Look, I haven't actually read them because at that time I thought novels based on properties were all bad. Because of the few that I'd read were actually really super bad. This is early D&D books that I read. So I was more interested just in the lore of the cards.
Right.
But I've heard from other people who have read them that yes, there's a deep story there. I was just really interested that the mechanics of the game and the story fit so well together, because it was all about Urza and Mishra, the two brothers, and their war against each other. And that was what I thought at the time Magic the game embodied. It was a 2-player game, so it was Urza versus Mishra.
Right,
It was two
right.
great mages. And for a time, that's what it was. And then they brought in the whole thing where Urza was a planeswalker and he ascended, and then you are a planeswalker playing the game. But for the first little while, you were just a big, nasty wizard casting spells.
Right. And whilst you tell yourself that you're Johnny, you're really a Vorthos, right? So you very much appreciate and kind of need the extra influence that story has on gameplay.
Oh, absolutely.
In order to enjoy it to its fullest.
Absolutely. Let's be honest. If the art wasn't as good as it is on some of the cards, I would probably not have invested the time in learning the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because you forget when you've been playing for a while, but it is not an easy game to just pick up.
Sure, there's a lot of rules, a lot of things to keep track of.
Yeah, it's a great game, but it does have a learning curve, and a steep one.
And honestly, I mean, just based on how thick the actual rule book is,
like 200 pages.
Like, you can learn as much as you want about stacks and layers and things like that,
Uh-huh.
if you want to keep going deeper.
Yep. There was an interesting question posed to, I want to say it's Surge, just recently about how
And
things
that's the
work.
Loading Ready Run staff judge,
Yeah.
basically.
And he said it was a timestamp issue, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that this card had anything to do with timestamps.
Right.
Which is, like, the time that it enters the
Yep,
battlefield
which one
affects
entered
what
first.
it does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, big headaches. But back to
The lore,
Dominaria.
Yes.
So, the first few sets dealt with the Brothers' War, and Urza and Mishra found this ancient artifact inside the Cave of Koilos, and that split into two pieces, the Might Stone and the Weak Stone, and revived the Phyrexians, and the Phyrexians are there, and they're invading
nice.
Dominaria. Yeah, so that's, I mean, Dominaria is home to the Phyrexian invasion, the Thran Empire, the Brothers, the skyship Weatherlight, all of this ancient lore that most people probably haven't even heard about.
Even peripherally aware of, yeah.
And by Weatherlight, I mean like the USS Starship Weatherlight, because it was the magic, Enterprise.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting, I know about these things mostly just through online discussions. I've never taken the time to actually read too much in depth about any of them. But I think it's interesting that, from what I can tell, this is basically peak nostalgia for both those players.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any of the really old surviving players of the game will have fond memories of their childhood being spent in the Dominaria lore. So going back there is going to be really difficult. And next week I'm going to talk about the 3 key characters who have been spoiled on the key art from the new set Dominaria.
Yeah.
But there are, honestly, I'm a little confused as to what they're all 3 doing there together. Not like they were together in nostalgia.
Sure.
But I was surprised to see Karn back. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's a fan favorite, though.
That's
Absolutely.
I don't think the creature was, but the planeswalker.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
is sick.
The creature in the books was probably it was the gentle giant, right? Like that's just the core of the character. But yeah, we'll get into all that next week. Basically, I wanted to give you a quick timeline of how things happen on Dominaria.
So where do we end off? With the plane.
Post-apocalypse.
Oh, okay.
For like the 3rd time in a row.
That sounds
basically
depressing.
The whole history of Dominaria is a history of wars. First it was the War of the Dragons, then it was the War of the Thran and the Phyrexians, and then it was the Brothers' War, and then it was the Mirage War, and just war. And then a whole other plane of Wrath was slammed into Dominaria and became part of it. So it fractured the planar barrier. And then the Tolarian Academy had all sorts of time magic that was doing weird stuff, and they opened rifts, and so time went crazy. And that was the last time we saw Dominaria as as a core setting was in Plane Shift, Planar Chaos, Time Spiral block.
Okay.
So that was when the whole past, future, and everything was all wibbly wobbly.
Yes.
And
Timey-wimey.
and Teferi, who is one of the characters who we're going to talk about next week, had to fix it because he pretty much caused the problem to begin with.
Whoopsies.
So the big thing that came of that was that after all of the rifts were sealed, after the mending, the whole nature of planeswalkers changed. Before the mending, they were godly beings who could create and shape planes. After the mending, they are Jason, Chandra, and the planeswalkers we know to them now. They basically they're wizards who can travel from dimension to dimension.
And have abilities.
Yeah. The one exception may be Nicol Bolas, who, again, was born on Dominaria, as far as we know. One of the original Elder Dragons who won the Dragon War and has been around as long as any being can remember.
Right.
He had said to, I want to say, Liliana, when she was old and looking to not die, basically, you don't know what loss is. You aren't aware of how much we've lost, because he was around when every planeswalker was basically a god.
Right. So to see not just, all the wars and, people around him dying as they grow old and stuff like that, but just to see the sheer diminishment
of the planeswalker spark, yeah.
Interesting.
So one other thing I thought was really interesting was just kind of how meta that is. Like, just the fact that, the history of Dominaria is kind of the history of war. And I thought so for two reasons. I mean, first of all, when you're playing Magic, it is a game of combat. You are fighting. It makes sense that that's what it would be focused on, because that provides the most logical explanation for what's happening between you and your fellow players. But also just we do the same thing on Earth. When you're taking history classes, it's pre-World War I, World War I, World War II. Like, they absolutely break things up according to where humanity is regarding warfare.
Historians like war because it gives them good action beats. It keeps things interesting. And honestly, war is the most marked factor in change for human history.
Absolutely.
Like, things can change gradually in peacetime, but things change dramatically in wartime. So, yeah.
So it makes sense, and I mean, that's kind of red as a color, right?
Yeah. Well, the Aether Revolt was fueled by 2 red characters, right?
That's true.
Or possibly 3, depending on how much you think Nicol Bolas had to do with it. On both sides.
That giant sweetheart, surely he had nothing to do with it.
So, I imagine that we will be seeing Nicol Bolas when it comes to Dominaria. Probably not as, like, a planeswalker, but just...
kind of a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Who could be doing this?
Yeah.
Especially given how prominent he's been in the stories lately.
Yeah, and now he has a zombie army and a planar bridge that can get them from plane to plane.
What could go wrong?
Nothing. Nothing.
I mean, we can always hope that he's going to do the right thing and take them to face the Eldrazi. Oh wait, the Eldrazi are gone now. Gone.
Just stir up the Phyrexians. It'll be fine.
So, all right, I'm gonna stop it there because we're gonna get into the Phyrexians next week.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Cool. Well, thank you for the story.
Yes.
It's really interesting. I'm getting kind of excited.
Yeah, from the Brothers' War through the Ice Age, through the Weatherlight, up until the Time Spiral, it's a ride. And if anyone wants to check out the books, you can still probably find them. And I've heard, you know what? I'm gonna borrow them from. We know a guy who has them all, so I'm gonna start reading.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I've heard very good things just about the way that the story evolved during that time. So. Good place to start.
Oh, one other thing I should mention about Dominaria and the Mending is that it had an effect on all of the other planes as well. Not directly, but The Mending was about 60 years ago in Planeswalker time, and that's about the time of the Great Aether Boom on Kaladesh. That's also about the time of something. It was something on Ravnica. I don't remember what. But there have been ripples.
Something Guild Pact.
Something to do with the Guild Pact,
Sure.
yeah. Anyway.
That's really interesting.
Here we go.
All right, well, thank you for spending some time with us, and we'll be back again next week with more.
And it'll be story time again.
Yeah.
Yep. And we'll be talking about Joyra and Karn and Teferi.
And a bit of Liliana, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yay!
So, yeah. Thanks for joining us. And we'll be talking to you next week.